I am the wife of the CEO, George Hansen. I have a lot of money, but my husband hardly ever comes home. Everyone around me envies me, yet I find it utterly meaningless. Because George doesn't love me, he loves my stepsister, Sophia. In my previous life, they drove me to my death. Along with the child in my womb, we perished together. After being reborn, I no longer want to be the CEO's wife. I want to marry George's good-for-nothing younger brother, Alex. In the ICU, the lights flickered. I woke up from a coma, my head spinning and my mind foggy. A sharp, tearing pain immediately shot through my abdomen, almost splitting me apart. The patient is crashing. Quick, call the family to sign the consent forms, a nurse shouted, gripping my hand tightly. Hold on for the sake of your baby. I used all my strength but still couldn't open my eyes. The overwhelming physical pain made it impossible to think clearly. After a moment, I remembered why I was in the ICU. It was because of my husband, George, and my stepsister, Sophia. George is a successful CEO, and I am his wife. I married George when he was at his lowest, and through my family's investment, I helped save his business. We had been married for 10 years. I had always been devoted to his family, taken care of his parents, and contributed greatly to his career. But while I was pregnant, he had an affair with my stepsister, Sophia. Because my pregnancy symptoms were severe, George used the excuse of having someone take care of me to let Sophia move into our home. Sophia constantly provoked me and caused trouble while clinging to George every day, throwing herself at him. I thought George would resist temptation and not pay attention to the affected and manipulative Sophia. But I overestimated the nature of men. One day, after returning home alone from a prenatal checkup, I caught the two of them in bed together. George and my stepsister were actually doing that in our marital home. I stood frozen on the spot. When I came to my senses, I tried to go inside to pack my things and leave. If there was no place for me in this house, fine, I would go. But George, furious and ashamed, yelled at me to get out. Sophia took advantage of the chaos and pushed me. I fell to the ground, protecting my belly, and lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was in the ICU. I knew my condition was critical. Because I was far along in my pregnancy, it was likely both I and the baby would die. After being called in by the nurses, George stood by coldly and indifferently. He showed no concern for me as I fought for my life. Instead, he held Sophia in his arms, comforting her patiently. Don't cry, my dear Sophia. You know, originally, I had always intended to marry you. How could I ever blame you? Back then, my business was in trouble. Only by marrying Emily, the biological daughter of the family, could I secure the investment from her family and stabilize the company. They thought I was still unconscious, so they spoke without restraint. But I heard everything, clear and piercing, each word stabbing like a dagger. So, George only married me for my family's investment and influence. George never loved me. The one he loved was my stepsister, Sophia. But Sophia is only my stepsister, an adopted daughter of the family, and of no real help to George's career. How foolish and naive I had been, deceived by this pair until the very end. In the final moments before my consciousness faded, I was overwhelmed with unprecedented regret. The biggest mistake and failure of my life was marrying George. I thought I had died. But I was reborn back to the year I turned 20. Since I was about to graduate from university, my grandmother was arranging a marriage for me. Seeing my grandmother still young and healthy, I felt a wave of sorrow. In my previous life, I died so young, along with the child in my womb. My grandmother must have been heartbroken, burying her child and grandchild. And the ones responsible for all this were George and Sophia. I threw myself into my grandmother's arms, obediently massaging her legs and back, making her happy. Knowing that I had grown up with George and his younger brother, Alex, my grandmother asked me, "Emily, you're not young anymore. Any thoughts about marriage?" Both of the Hansen brothers seem like good matches to me. In my previous life, I resolutely chose George, only to be utterly broken by him and meet a tragic end with my unborn child. Now, Reborn, I will not make the same mistake again. Grandmother, I want to be with Alex. I want to marry him, I said with unwavering determination. My grandmother raised her eyebrows, clearly surprised. Emily, but I remember, you've always preferred spending time with George? I thought you had feelings for him. I forced a bitter smile. That's only because I was too shy to seek out Alex. It's just a young girl's secret, don't you understand, grandmother? My grandmother chuckled softly. So that's how it is. Well, that's fine too. Although George is more capable than Alex in some ways, a man who is too career-driven isn't necessarily a good thing. After marriage, he might easily neglect his family. I deeply agreed and nodded. In my previous life, after marrying George, he rarely spent time with me. I always understood, thinking he was too busy with work. I couldn't bear to disturb him, afraid he would find me clingy. I did everything I could to be a good supportive wife and partner for him. But in the end, he never truly cared about me or the child in my womb. Even as I lay in the ICU fighting for my life, all he could think about was divorcing me and marrying Sophia. In that moment, I understood completely. There was simply no place for me in George's heart. In this lifetime, I will let him go, and I hope he will let me go too, the farther away, the better. My grandmother thought for a moment, then added. Although Alex might seem a bit unmotivated, playful, and not very steady, always holed up in his room playing games. I can see that he has a good heart. He will be a good husband. I sighed silently. Everyone thought Alex was a hopeless gaming addict who would never amount to anything, a complete good-for-nothing. But I knew Alex wasn't like that. George, as Alex's twin brother, pretended to feel sorry for him while urging him to work harder, but in reality, he was always wary of his own brother, afraid Alex would compete with him for the company and family assets. But the truth was, Alex was already highly successful, even more so than George. He just knew how to keep a low profile, and everyone was fooled. The next day, my grandmother went to the Hansen family to propose the marriage. I was in a low mood and wanted to go find Alex to hang out. But just as I stepped out the door, I was stopped by George, who had rushed over in a hurry. George looked very impatient. Emily, you're being unreasonable. I've been really busy lately trying to secure investments. Can't our marriage wait a little longer? I heard your grandmother went to talk to my mom today about marriage. My mind raced, and I immediately realized George was trying to buy time. If he could secure the investment on his own, he wouldn't need my family's financial support. That way, he wouldn't have to marry me. But in this lifetime, I hadn't chosen him anyway. Why was he being so presumptuous? I replied cold-shoulderly, it's true that my grandmother went to your family to propose, but George, my marriage has nothing to do with you. George didn't listen to me at all and kept talking as if to himself. Emily, stop being angry with me. How can your marriage have nothing to do with me? How many times have I told you? I want to focus on my career right now and don't want to get married so soon. Why can't you be a little more understanding? I sneered coldly. Understanding? I am being understanding. I've already told you, my marriage has nothing to do with you. The person I'm marrying isn't you. George suddenly let out a scornful laugh and looked at me with disdain. You're not marrying me? Then who could you possibly marry? Don't tell me you're going to marry that worthless Alex? Emily, we grew up together. I know exactly how you feel about me. I was so angry at George's arrogant thinking that I was left speechless. Suddenly, George's phone rang. Out of the corner of my eye, I accidentally saw it was Sophia, my dear stepsister, calling him. She must have found out that my grandmother went to the Hansen family to propose. Afraid that I would really marry George, she immediately started causing trouble. But little did my stepsister know, I no longer wanted George. Since she wanted to be with him, I would gladly let them have each other. George held his phone, looking slightly guilty. It's a business partner calling to discuss work. I need to take this. I responded with an expressionless sneer and turned to leave. George's calculations were so transparent. If he successfully secured the investment, he naturally wouldn't marry me. But if he failed to secure funding, he would definitely come crawling back, begging me to marry him. Just like in my previous life, George failed to secure the investment. It was as if he suddenly had an epiphany and became incredibly attentive to me, sticking by my side every day. He constantly found new ways to confess his love and deceive me, making me believe he truly loved me. I was moved by his gentle offensive and thought he was a motivated man with ambition, so I finally agreed to marry him. But, before that, the person I had always liked was actually his younger brother, Alex. Although everyone thought Alex was a waste of space, only knowing how to play computer games, I knew it was all just an act. Alex wasn't like that. Before George made a big show of pursuing me, it was Alex I had feelings for. It was just that Alex was introverted, a bit shy, and not very good with words, so I assumed he didn't like me. In my previous life, due to twists of fate, I married the wrong person, and he married the wrong person. But in this lifetime, I won't make the wrong choice again. 3 days later, my grandmother took me to the Hansen family for dinner. George, Alex, and their parents were all there. It was a very formal family dinner. During the meal, George wore an impatient expression and glared fiercely at me. He thought I was using the elders to force him into marrying me. Meanwhile, Alex kept stealing glances at me, trying to hold back a smile. It seemed Alex already knew I was going to marry him, and clearly, he was overjoyed. Throughout the dinner, both Alex and I enjoyed ourselves immensely, secretly communicating under the table using gestures only the two of us understood. George, however, was restless and couldn't taste a thing. He still believed I was trying to marry him, preventing him from being with his beloved Sophia. During a break in the meal, George even stepped out to take a call from Sophia. When he returned, the look he gave me was even more filled with disdain and scorn. Though I didn't know what Sophia had said to him, I was certain it wasn't anything good. After the servants cleared the dishes, George's mother spoke up. She glanced at her 2 sons and solemnly announced, "I have some joyful news to share today. Emily is going to become part of our family as a daughter-in-law. Both of you must treat her well from now on and never bully her. Understood?" As soon as Auntie Hansen finished speaking, George suddenly pushed back his chair and stood up abruptly. He declared firmly, "No. Mom. I disagree. I don't want to get married so soon." The table fell into dead silence. Auntie and Uncle Hansen's faces instantly turned pale with anger. My grandmother calmly wiped her mouth with a napkin. "It seems there's been some misunderstanding about Emily's marriage." "There is a misunderstanding. Dad, Mom. I'm at an age where I should be focusing on my career. Marriage would only hold me back." Uncle Hansen couldn't contain his anger any longer and slammed his hand on the table. "You ungrateful brat. Sit down. How dare you speak out of turn in front of your elders? Do you even know the rules of this family?" George wanted to say more, but fearing his father, he reluctantly closed his mouth and sat back down with a sulky expression. Auntie Hansen looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry, Emily. This is my fault. I should have made things clear to George earlier, which led to this misunderstanding." George suddenly seemed to realize something. He looked at his mother, then at me, and asked in a trembling voice, "What misunderstanding?" As Auntie Hansen was carefully considering how to explain, Alex spoke up first. A bright smile on his lips, Alex raised an eyebrow and looked at George. "Big brother, Emily is going to marry me." George's face instantly turned deathly pale. He took a deep breath and suddenly crushed the wine glass in his hand. He turned sharply, staring at me in disbelief. His pupils constricted, his face ashen. He seemed utterly shocked, his lips trembling. "Emily, you're joking with me, aren't you? I just wanted to postpone marriage a little longer." How could you marry my brother?" I looked at his panicked expression, feeling nothing inside, and replied calmly. "George, I think you've misunderstood my feelings for you. The one I've always liked was your brother, so of course I'm going to marry him. George roared, impossible. I don't believe it. I let out a light laugh. Whether you believe it or not has nothing to do with me. George gritted his teeth. How does it have nothing to do with me? You're my woman. You're not allowed to marry anyone else. Hearing this, my grandmother immediately stiffened her expression and cold looked at George. Your woman? My precious granddaughter is a member of the Smith family. Even if she marries into the Hansen family, she will always be a Smith daughter. How did she become your woman, you brat? She took my hand and added, or is it because someone thinks that since Emily's parents are gone, this old woman might as well be dead too? Seeing that my grandmother was angry, Uncle Hansen quickly tried to smooth things over with an apologetic smile. Not at all, not at all. It's just that Emily is so lovable, so George is a bit reluctant to let her go. You idiot. Sit down and speak properly to Emily. But George's gaze remained fixed on me, like a venomous snake almost tearing me apart. He clenched his fists, his eyes wide with fury. Emily, how dare you play with my feelings? I didn't respond, quietly watching George lose his composure in public. This wasn't the right moment for me to speak. Uncle Hansen, unable to tolerate it any longer, said, George, you're drunk. Go back to your room. George took a deep breath, gave me one last intense look, and turned away from the table. Although George protested, my marriage to Alex was officially settled. I didn't want to see George or that wretched Sophia, so aside from attending university, I spent most of my time at home with my grandmother. In my free time, I also helped Alex test his new game. Everyone thought Alex was wasting his life on frivolous pursuits. But I knew he was truly passionate about gaming, it was his life's dream. As early as high school, he had taught himself programming and developed several small games that became quite popular online, attracting a dedicated fanbase. In university, he partnered with a few others to develop a fantasy-themed RPG online game, earning a substantial income at a young age. Alex said this was our little secret and made me promise not to tell anyone. Even his parents were unaware of Alex's achievements. They would only shake their heads and sigh when they saw him, saying he was unmotivated and couldn't compare to his older brother, George. But I knew, Alex was truly exceptional. Before George made such a grand show of pursuing me, the person I truly liked was actually Alex. It was just that Alex was introverted, somewhat shy, and not very articulate, which led me to believe he didn't like me. In my previous life, due to a twist of fate, I married the wrong person, and he married the wrong person. But in this lifetime I will not make the wrong choice again. I told Alex that I had prepared a surprise for him. Late that night, I finished the last stitch, unfolded the newly knitted wrist guards, and gently shook them out. My grandmother had once said my knitting skills were poor, so I specially sought out a teacher to learn properly. This was already my best work. Alex was always typing on his computer, which inevitably caused discomfort in his wrists. He would probably like these wrist guards, right? Feeling a bit shy, I was too embarrassed to tell Alex directly that I had sent him a gift. Instead, I quietly arranged for a courier to deliver it to his home. But I never expected that George would intercept the package and open the gift I had intended for Alex. The day after sending the gift, George sent me a photo. It was the wrist guards I had personally knitted. The gift you sent my brother? I'll reluctantly accept it on his behalf. Furious, I immediately went out and had the driver take me to the Hansen family home. These were the wrist guards I had knitted for Alex. How dare George trample on my feelings like this? When I arrived at the Hansen residence, Sophia and George were flying a kite in the garden. Sophia's pale fingers reached high into the air, soon clasped by another larger hand. She shyly nestled into George's embrace, laughing coquettishly. My sudden appearance interrupted their flirtatious moment. George looked displeased and eyed me warily. What are you doing here? I extended my hand, getting straight to the point. The wrist guards. Return them to me. He furrowed his brows. No. I've already used them. My anger instantly flared. Before I could speak, Sophia let out a delicate laugh. Her eyes sparkling, she pointed toward the sky. Speaking of which, the wrist guards Sister knitted are so versatile and durable, they're perfect for tying to my kite. Following her finger, I looked up and felt as if I had been struck by lightning. The wrist guards I had personally knitted were tied to the kite she was holding with its string. George had used my heartfelt effort to please his beloved. Blood rushed to my head. I felt as if I were submerged in overwhelming rage, the grievances from both my past and present lives flooding out like a torrent, nearly crushing me. Losing control, I shoved him fiercely, my voice nearly hoarse with fury. That's my thing. How could you do this? You've lost your mind. Staggering from my push, his angry retort cut off the moment he saw my reddened eyes. He had never seen me so emotional before and was momentarily stunned, at a loss for what to do. After a long pause, he frowned and spoke stiffly. All right, Alex and I are brothers. What's the big deal if I use something you gave him? I've known you for so long, and you've never personally made me a gift. If you really enjoy knitting these things, just make another one for me. But I don't want white, I prefer black. I was stunned by George's audacity, my eyes widening in disbelief. George, who do you think you are? Do you really deserve to have me, Miss Smith, personally knit something for you? If you really want a gift, I'll personally knit you a green hat, to wish you and Sophia a long and happy union. George froze abruptly. After a moment of hesitation, the guilt on his face was replaced by mockery. Think you're something special just because you're marrying my brother? Emily, stop throwing a tantrum and calm down, will you? It's just a pair of wrist guards. Is it worth making such a life or death scene over? Watch your language. Sophia is your sister. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the violent undulating in my chest. I bent down, picked up a stone from the ground, and swiftly hurled it high into the air. With a sharp whoosh, it tore through the sky. Almost simultaneously, the delicate kite dancing in the air instantly ripped apart. My wrist guards fell from the sky. George stared at me in disbelief, too shocked to speak. Beside him, Sophia shrank into his arms, covering her ears as if frightened. In the nearly frozen air, I stared fixedly at him, my expression completely blank. George, from now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other. With that, I turned and strode out of the Hansen residence. As I left, I faintly heard Sophia's tearful voice. George, it's all my fault. I thought Sister wouldn't mind about a pair of wrist guards. Sister seems really angry. Should you go comfort her, George? I could feel a burning gaze locked intently on me. After a brief silence, a hoarse, irritated male voice responded. Why should I comfort her? She's about to marry my brother. I had thought that even if we couldn't be husband and wife in this life, at least the bond of growing up together would remain. I never expected that George's actions and attitude would feel so frighteningly unfamiliar. It was as if I weren't his childhood friend but his enemy. Back at home, I gathered all the items that had any connection to George and asked the housekeeper to throw them away. It was time for me to move on and start a new life. A life without George. After collecting myself, I asked Alex to go for a walk with me. The central garden was brightly lit. A faint, refreshing fragrance lingered in the air, soothing the senses. A deep male voice sounded from behind me. You wanted to see me? I stiffened, once again charmed by Alex's adorable nature. Seeing me bite my lip in shy annoyance, his bright eyes dimmed, and his voice grew low and husky. Do you regret it? I lifted my head, confused. Regret what? He turned away, his lips pressed into a stubborn line. After a long moment, he spoke sullenly. It's too late for regrets. My father said you were the one who told your grandmother you wanted to marry me. Finally understanding his meaning, I shook my head with a soft laugh. No, I have no regrets. Then I tilted my head and smiled meaningfully. I only hope that Alex will make sure I never regret it in the future, too. His dark eyes instantly lit up, and he nodded firmly, as if making a promise. I will. We walked side by side, the quiet air filled with a sweet tension. I thought to myself, this time, I hadn't made the wrong choice. Alex walked me to my doorstep. As we passed through the garden, someone suddenly blocked our path. It was George again. I rolled my eyes impatiently. George glared at me, his eyes bloodshot. "Who were you with just now?" I looked at him calmly. "With Alex, of course. He's my fiancé." Alex took a step closer, his expression dark and terrifying, like an enraged lion. "Emily, you fickle woman. Can't you live without a man?" My face hardened as Cold looked at him. "George, watch your words. Your brother and I are engaged with our family's blessing. He is my rightful fiancé. How does that make me fickle? Fiancé?" He sneered, his gaze still locked fiercely on me, his voice venomous. "Tell me, did you ever, from the very beginning, intend to marry me? Did you?" I didn't answer. The night breeze was cool, and only the rustling of leaves could be heard. George angrily punched a tree, his roar filled with fury and something else indistinct. "Emily, I always saw you as my future wife." I suddenly found it somewhat ironic. In my previous life, he was the one who rushed to divorce me to make room for Sophia. In this life, when I'm about to marry his brother, he's still the one who can't let go. Why bother? I closed my eyes briefly. "I never liked you from the start. I've always liked your brother. If you continue to harass me, I'll tell your parents everything." After saying this, I calmly stepped back. "Sophia likes you, and you have feelings for her too. To avoid misunderstandings, it's better if we keep our distance." Without waiting for George to respond, I turned and walked away. My grandmother consulted someone to choose an auspicious date. My wedding with Alex was set for 2 months later. After that last encounter with me, George had quieted down considerably. His father had found out about him harassing me and gave him a severe scolding. Though George was successful in his career, he was deeply afraid of his father. After finalizing the bridesmaid team with my grandmother, I decided to go to the mall to pick out gifts for them. But as soon as I entered a luxury store on the first floor, I ran into George and Sophia. George had his arm around Sophia's waist, helping her try on shoes. When he saw me, George's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Where's your fiancé, Miss Smith? Why isn't my dear brother accompanying you on your shopping trip? Is this the kind of man you chose?" Sophia let out a soft laugh. "I heard there's a new martial arts game that's super popular. Lots of my classmates are playing it. Your fiancé must be at home gaming, right? Too busy to accompany his fiancée shopping?" I sneered inwardly, thinking, for once, this empty-headed vase had actually said something smart. Alex was indeed playing that game, because he was the one who developed it. With so many players, he was busy maintaining the servers and updating patches, swamped with work. I fully supported Alex's career and knew how time-sensitive game updates were, so I'd told him to focus on his work and not worry about accompanying me lately. George's tone grew increasingly sarcastic, his smile triumphant. "This is the fiancé you carefully chose? Not much to look at, is he?" He draped an arm around Sophia's shoulder and spoke condescendingly. "Once you marry my brother, you'll regret it. That guy only cares about gaming. He won't ever prioritize you." Just as George finished speaking, the glass door of the store suddenly swung open. Footsteps hurried toward us, and the sound stopped as an ice cream was handed to me. Alex stood there, fine beads of sweat on his forehead, striding over to offer me an ice cream cone. His eyes shone brightly, as if I were his entire world, gazing at me with full anticipation. "I brought you the ice cream you wanted. Try it quickly." I was stunned. Frozen in place, I stared at him blankly. Where had Alex come from? He tilted his head slightly and winked at me. Understanding, I took the ice cream, lowering my gaze shyly, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Alex." George's mouth trembled several times before he snapped it shut angrily. He snorted coldly, refusing to look at me again, and stormed off. Sophia's eyes were fixed on Alex in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Alex frowned, his tone unfriendly. "I'm accompanying my fiancé shopping." "It's only natural. Why shouldn't I be here?" "No game is more important than my wife." Sophia was speechless, as if seeing Alex for the first time. Even after George called her away, Sophia's gaze lingered on Alex. After the two left, I held the ice cream cone, gently biting my lower lip. "How did you know I was here?" Alex's cheeks flushed slightly, his voice soft. "You said you were coming to the mall. I missed you, so I came to accompany you." A faint joy rose in my heart, and I homeopathic pushed the tip of the cone toward his mouth. I smiled gently. "Is it sweet?" Alex took a bite of the ice cream. He stared straight at me, his ears turning red, and nodded dumbly. My cheeks burned as I lowered my head slightly, my voice soft but clear enough for him to hear. "I think it's very sweet too." After returning home, I received a text from George. "If you won't be my wife, then be my mistress. Even if your heart doesn't belong to me, I won't let you marry my brother." Frowning, I felt a growing sense of unease. By the next day, that unease had intensified. My grandmother suddenly told me that Uncle Hansen had unexpectedly fallen into a coma and was hospitalized. Now, all the family business had been handed over to George. Worried about Uncle Hansen's condition, I called Alex. He didn't answer, but he sent me a message. "Father is fine. Don't worry." My intuition told me that Uncle Hansen's incident was likely connected to George. I shared my thoughts with my grandmother. After a moment of contemplation, she immediately took me to the hospital where Uncle Hansen was staying. In the hospital room, Uncle Hansen was already awake and didn't seem surprised by our visit. Gazing out the window, he spoke calmly. "George's intention to harm me isn't something that started just recently. He bribed the household staff and the chef to put drugs in my meals and drinks. I handed over the subsidiary company to him, but he mismanaged it. Now he's out of money and can't secure any investments. He's always been wary of Alex, wishing his own brother would remain a worthless good-for-nothing. He's also been hoping I'd retire early and hand over power to him." After speaking, Uncle Hansen turned his head and looked at me steadily. "Emily, you'll soon be my daughter-in-law. Would you be willing to humble yourself a little and help your uncle with something?" 3 days later, Uncle Hansen fell into a coma again. Just as I was about to head to the hospital to visit him, several men in black stopped me and forced me into a black car. Once inside, my hands and feet were bound. After driving for a while, the car stopped in a secluded spot. George got into the car. He looked at me coldly, his demeanor condescending. "Emily, did you really think I'd let you off so easily? Soon my father will be dead, and the Hansen family business will all be mine." I glared at him angrily, struggling against the ropes, but he maliciously pressed down on my hands. "Don't waste your energy, Emily. After I take over the Hansen family, I'll get rid of Alex, then marry your sister. I'll make Sophia my properly wedded wife. And you? You'll just be my plaything." I let out a cold scoff, my fingers twisting as my nails dug sharply into his palm, and I spat out hatefully. "You're dreaming." Instead of pulling away, George tightened his grip, allowing blood to bead in his palm. He stared at my face with a strange, unnerving smile. "I had no idea that I'd once been married to you for a lifetime." My heart skipped a beat, and I jerked my head up to meet his sinister eyes. In those dark pupils, there was resentment, disappointment, and an indescribable complexity. The car drove for 6 hours before finally stopping. Aside from bathroom breaks, George didn't allow me to get out. I tentatively brought up the past life, asking how he knew about it. George only looked at me with a faint, mocking smile. Apart from that mention of a lifetime together, he refused to say another word. But I could tell, he hadn't been reborn. It was more likely that Sophia, like me, had been reborn and told him about our previous life. When we got out of the car, my eyes were blindfolded. George led me around for what felt like ages before finally stopping. The moment the blindfold was removed, all I could see was red everywhere. A wedding quilt embroidered with dragons, phoenixes, and mandarin ducks, large red wedding candles, and even the carved wooden beams adorned with double happiness characters. He watched with amusement as my expression shifted dramatically. "Well? How do you like the bridal chamber I prepared for you? Even if you're just a plaything, I've given you the treatment of a wife." I shoved him away violently, my eyes wide with fury. "The man I'm marrying is Alex. What kind of madness is this?" His face darkened instantly, his gaze sharp and vicious. "Don't mention another man in front of me." "Alex? Is he even worthy?" I took a frightened step back, accidentally bumping into the redwood wedding table behind me. Gritting my teeth, I suppressed the rising unease and forced myself to stay calm. "I thought you only had eyes for Sophia. Aren't you afraid of hurting her by marrying me like this?" He grinned, laughing. "Emily, are you jealous?" "I knew it, your heart belongs to me." "Marrying Alex? You're just trying to provoke me, aren't you?" Then his expression shifted again, turning serious as he looked at me. "But Emily, you've really made me angry this time. I have to teach you a lesson so you remember who you truly love." I stared at him in disbelief, his earnestness almost convincing. George had lost his mind. He was clearly deceiving himself. I was locked in a basement. George said he would only let me out once I came to my senses and was willing to say I loved him. Gazing at the small patch of sky through the window, my mind drifted. Once again, Uncle Hansen's back from his hospital bed flashed before my eyes. George also sold our company's trade secrets to competitors. Even though he's my own son, I can't indulge him any longer. Otherwise, I'd only be enabling his destruction. Given his personality, he won't let you marry Alex peacefully. If he comes for you again, would you be willing to buy us some time? I've already been gathering evidence of his illegal activities. Soon, I'll be able to submit it to the police and the courts. A father's failure to teach his son is a father's fault. I'm going to send George to prison. After being locked up for half a month, George suddenly came to me and said he was taking me to get married. He also brought me a pair of wrist guards. I looked at him curiously. He awkwardly averted his gaze. "Your wrist guards, I'm returning them to you." But these wrist guards were noticeably rough. As I ran my fingers over the uneven stitches, George blushed and spoke uncomfortably. "I just started learning not long ago. Don't laugh at me." I lowered my head, clutching them tightly, my heart filled with mixed emotions. Some people never appreciate what they have until it's gone, only to regret it later. Why, George? If he had shown even a shred of sincerity toward me in our previous life, we wouldn't have ended up like this. His so-called wedding had no elders, no family, no friends. George held my hand, leading me step by step into the hall he had prepared for so long. There were only cold, inanimate objects and some masked strangers in black. "Bow to heaven and earth." George bent down, solemnly performing the ritual with me. Suddenly, sirens blared, and a group of plainclothes officers rushed in and seized George. Alex followed closely behind, rushing to my side, holding my hand as he anxiously looked me over. "Emily. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." George stared at Alex and me in disbelief, his eyes filled with hatred. His voice trembled. "Emily, are you really so unwilling to be with me?" I walked over to him, took off the wrist guards, and handed them back. "George. I've already told you. The person I like is your brother. If you truly loved me, you would respect my choice. Not lock me up here and force me into submission." My voice caught slightly as I spoke. In a tone only he could hear, I whispered softly. "Besides, you've already hurt me for a lifetime. You owe me a life, and our child's. When I was dying, you said you would marry Sophia. I once loved you, but that version of me is already dead." George's eyes widened in shock, and he even forgot to resist. Expressionless, I watched as the plainclothes officers led him away, then let out a soft sigh. Uncle Hansen had indeed kept his word. I likely wouldn't see George again in this lifetime. Though Uncle Hansen was getting older, he was still as decisive and efficient as in his youth. George's verdict came quickly. Aside from what Uncle Hansen had mentioned, he had committed plenty of other despicable acts. With all the charges combined, he received the maximum sentence, life imprisonment. After George was imprisoned, Sophia discovered she was pregnant with his child. She couldn't bear to part with the child but accidentally fell and miscarried. After losing the baby, she lost her mind. Amid the chaos in the Hansen family, Alex was called upon to take charge. He hurriedly took over various affairs but handled them exceptionally well. Thanks to his astonishing business talent, Uncle Hansen named Alex his successor. The night before Alex and I were to marry, he took me to his computer room and said he wanted to show me a game. I moved the mouse and clicked to open the game. In the game, a little girl and a little boy were playing house. It turned out this game documented every little detail of Alex's and my childhood together. Only then did I understand. Alex had liked me since we were children. Emily, I'm not good with words. I can't say sweet things well. But I've made all the things I wanted to tell you into a game. Do you like it? I raised my hand to wipe the tears from the corner of my eyes and smiled through them. I love it. I don't just love the game. I love you too.